Oh, shoot. What's going on?
Good morning. Oh, something's going on in Lytham.
Found it. Oh, is there a lady called Susan?
Should be fine now. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see some faces and not just icons. That makes a pleasant change. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Sarah. I work in the comms team at National Mind, and I'm going to be sort of co-running this session with Lauren this morning. I'll just do a bit of an introduction just for the next couple of minutes, just while potentially other people still join as well, because we often find that happens. Please say hello in the chat. Let us know what shop you're from or which local mind you're from, if anyone is joining us from a local mind today. So say hi to each other in the chat. Let us know if it's sunny where you are. It's sunny in London today here, which is rare, feels rare at the moment amidst all the rain. So let us know where you're dialing in from and how things are there. Just to give you a bit of an understanding of what to expect in today's session, it's a really informal, open session for us all to just put our heads together and look at how do we currently recruit volunteers, what works well, what haven't we tried but would maybe like to try, what kind of out there ideas might we all have to kind of boost volunteer recruitment and crucially volunteer retention as well across the Federation, so in shops, in the national charity and in local minds. We're going to be using the chat today and, unmuting ourselves and talking, but we're also going to use a tool called Menti. So if you've got your smartphone anywhere near you or a tablet, or you can open up another tab on your computer and just go to www.menti.com and we'll pop this in the chat. It'll ask you to enter a code and we'll pop that code in the chat as well. And we're just going to guide ourselves through a few questions today so that we can sort of share what comes out of this session with other colleagues as well. So it gives us a bit more of a visual representation of what your ideas are. I've just realised I haven't told my co-facilitator what the code is, so I'm just going to put that in the chat myself now, and I'll hand you over to Lauren in the meantime to just give a little bit of background to volunteer recruitment at Mind Retail.
Hi, good morning everyone. I hope everyone's well. Feel free to get a cuppa or a coffee or whatever you want whilst you're with us. It's going to be, as Sarah said, we're going to have quite an informal sort of session where we can share ideas and brainstorm together. So I'm Lauren, I should introduce myself properly. I'm volunteer officer for Mind Retail, and I support the shops and teams with everything volunteering, volunteer recruitment, enrolment, and I also manage the volunteer CRM system as well, and handle the inquiry inbox as well, which we get quite a lot of inquiries from, around 600 a month, and they're the ones that we then send on to the shops as well. So here to share some ideas today and find out what is and what isn't working for you and how we can brainstorm together to get more volunteers. So thank you for joining.
Thanks, Lauren. What we're going to do to start off with is we're just going to look at what we're all already doing. And it might seem like a weird place to start because you think, well, everybody knows that. But we know that different shops and different local minds use a range of different tactics to recruit volunteers. So we thought it'd be helpful, first of all, to just kind of bring all of that together and get a view on the things that we're all already doing to recruit volunteers. And we'll pick some of those out and perhaps ask you to tell us a bit more about them, particularly if it sounds like something we've not heard of before and that others could learn from. So as I mentioned, we're going to use this tool called Menti. If you don't want to use the tool, it's absolutely cool, and you can pop your suggestions in the chat and we'll add those afterwards. But it's a nice interactive way for us to share ideas. So it's www.menti.com. You can do it on your smartphone, tablet, or another tab on your PC. And there's a code to enter, which you'll find in the chat, but it's 28781315. So the first question in Menti is just going to ask you to share your current recruitment methods for volunteers. You can put as many things in there as you like. So if your shop's got loads of ideas or your local mind's got loads of ideas, please put them all in there and we'll share that on screen in a minute so we can begin to start to see a bit of a picture building up of how you currently recruit your volunteers. Be really interested to know as well if we've got any volunteers themselves on the call today, because that'll give us a really different perspective as we look at this as well. So do let us know if you're a volunteer and you're on this call. So we'll start screen sharing the Menti in a second and see what you guys are currently doing. Lauren, do you want to talk a little bit about the way that, from a national mind, you know, from a national perspective, that we recruit volunteers?
Yeah, of course. So we have a couple of different avenues to enroll in as a volunteer. So we have the Mind website, where we've got an inquiry page for volunteering there, and that those inquiries currently go through to our retail volunteering inbox, which is manned by our team. And we then get back in touch directly with the volunteers and put them in touch with shops that are closest to them, or their preferred shop if they've suggested that. We also have people who walk into the shops, and that is one of our top ways where we are recruiting volunteers, is people, members of the public, visiting our Mind shops. So we get the majority of our volunteers through them visiting the shop or the website. So the process is slightly different online. They fill in an initial inquiry form with a few basic details: date of birth, their postcode, and perhaps how many hours or days a week they're looking to volunteer. We then directly from the retail volunteering inbox send that to the relevant shop, and then either the volunteer has the shop's contact details and can get in touch with them, or the shop can get in touch with the volunteer. They would still need to attend the shop for an informal chat with the shop team and to talk about their experience. We would need to still get 2 references from them, and they would fill out the general volunteer application form. And moving on to the volunteer application form, when people visit a shop, they will likely have an informal chat with one of the shop team members about why they want to volunteer, perhaps what their experience is or what they're looking to gain, and then they will go through the full volunteer recruitment application form. They would provide 2 references, and we would go through all the usual induction procedures as well. So they're the 2 main ways that we get volunteers in our shops. We also sometimes luckily benefit if there's perhaps a corporate partnership in place where people are aligned with Mind, supporting Mind as a charity, and they may get some days from their employer to volunteer in the shops as well. So that's another mechanism. But I'd probably say visiting a shop and applying online, they're the 2 main mechanisms at the moment. And just to quickly add a bit of news on the online application, we're just in a test phase at the moment, but we will actually be rolling out with the CRM team when people log their details on the website. My boss Hassan is actually just working with the team to get that digitized, so it will go to the shop straight away. So we get between 500 and 600 inquiries a month. But they come to us first and then go to the shops. So we're hoping changing this process will make it that bit quicker. Because I was reading recently, apparently if you don't get back to a volunteer within 48 hours of them stating their interest, they potentially won't volunteer with us. So the quicker we can get back to them, the better, really.
Wow, that's really interesting, Lauren. I suppose it is that thing, isn't it? You know, when you sort of have a mind to do something, whatever it might be, if you don't do it in that moment, often it doesn't happen. So it does make sense around that kind of time delay. We've got a few suggestions coming up on the screen of what people normally do. And Julie's put some comments in the chat because she's not at a laptop at the moment. I mean, a lot of these tie in with what you were just saying, but there's people talking about going to recruitment fairs. I can see Duke of Edinburgh as well, which is not something I've ever thought of before. Does anyone want to share a little bit more about what they've put on there and how it came about and how successful it's been for you? Particularly interested in the kind of recruitment fairs and Duke of Edinburgh, stuff like that, work experience. Who can let us know what works for them? Everybody's being shy.
Oh, I can come on as soon as I wrote that.
Brilliant.
So all those ways work for us really well. We get a lot of youngsters want to do work experience in the shop, so they'll come in normally in June or July for a week. Yeah, and then we go to like events like carnivals and fetes, and we advertise there. Duke of Edinburgh Award, we just get people either email us or just walk in and ask if they can do work experience here. That's normally for a year, but it's about a couple of hours a week, so it's not or it's an hour a week, but we try and get them to do 2 hours a fortnight, so they're here for a bit longer.
Yeah,
that all works well for us.
thank you. That's really interesting. And it's such a patchwork, isn't it, of you know, this person does 2 hours, this person does 3 hours. It's a real movable feast.
Yeah.
Ruth?
Hi everyone. I just wanted to talk on the back of what Lauren was saying about the online application forms. So my usually because someone's took their time out to fill in an application form, which gets sent to the shops. So there's usually quite a genuine interest, have went to the effort to do that. We have good success in getting out in the community. So going to it might be like local churches or coffee mornings and things like that, because we have a lot of community-based shops, and having someone to speak to face from the shop, and if we can get a volunteer to go along as well and sell it a bit for us, that can be quite successful. Colleges and unis, we have a lot of shop space near to either one of those, which is where we hold our main sort of job recruitment fairs. They usually do them a couple of times a year, and then we can really get talking to students face to face again. We'll just set up a little table, bring some application forms, and try and grab as many details from people as we can, so that if we don't hear from somebody, we can always follow it up with a bit of a phone call. But I think one of the best things that we do is when someone does come into the shop itself, do you need any volunteers? Can I have an application form? We'll nab them, so to speak, there and then. So we wouldn't just give them a form and let them tot off. We'd be like, oh, hi, I'm such a body. What's your name? If you've got 5 minutes, why don't you come into the shop? Come into the back shop, meet a few other people, have a cuppa, fill in your form here. We can arrange a work trial. So just trying to get all those details when they come in the shop before they take the application form away. It's probably one of the best things that we get success from.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, because it just means that they're not feeling too overwhelmed straight away by this big paper application form, which obviously we need those details, but it's nice to have that personal element, isn't it, interacting with them.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear about community groups as well, and I think we'll delve into that a little bit more on our next question on Menti. But before I move on, has anyone on the call seen something pop up on that Menti screen that you haven't thought of before and that you'd like to know a little bit more about in terms of existing ways of recruiting volunteers? Because I'm sure colleagues on the call can share their experience, but I'll move on if no one has any sort of questions around that and get to the fun bit. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to jump back into the Menti, and we're just going to rip up the rule book. There are no rules. We can do whatever we want. Let's not even think about money at this point. No idea is a bad idea. So if we think about all the different touch points that we could have with people, full stop, where could we advertise for volunteers? What kind of opportunities could we jump on the back of to talk about volunteering and all the opportunities and benefits that brings? Let's really think outside of the box. And while Ed reloads the Menti, I'm going to ask Lauren to step in, because we had a conversation about this the other day, and Lauren has got so many ideas. She needs like a spare cupboard to keep them all in. So Lauren can give you a little bit of a flavour of some of the type of thing we mean, like of really thinking not just community groups, but what does that mean? What community groups? How do we tap into them? What's the methods? So Lauren.
Thanks, Sarah. So bear with me because I'm just changing screens. So before that, I just wanted to add that often as well, we think about what we're needing from volunteers, but it's also about perhaps what's in it for them as well. So I would just say, as a precursor to that, just bear in mind these kind of things that they could have in their mind about what they want to achieve from volunteering. So it could be them getting confidence, getting back into a working environment. It could be skill building, social connection. It could be to support their own mental health, support the cause. They may want to make new friends, or they perhaps just want to be part of a team. And also they could want to progress within Mind as well, to a lead volunteer or within a paid role. So just bear that in mind as well. And now I'm just going to list off a few ideas. There are quite a few, so bear with me now. Just a moment. So we can touch on any of these in a bit more detail, but I'll just talk you through them first. So areas for promoting and recruiting volunteers. So these are in no particular order. They may seem a bit random, but we can chat through them if you're unsure why we've picked these ideas. So we've got cinemas, children's nursery notice boards, homeless shelters and homeless centres, food banks. I'll just explain that one. There's thousands of food banks. Sadly, obviously, there is a need for them around the country, and there are thousands literally all over the country. So it's highly likely there may be a food bank within your area as well, whether you're a local Mind or a Mind charity shop. For example, the Trussell Trust, who is a food bank charity, they are actually supporting with volunteers there. So you could actually signpost to Trussell Trust where people can attend a food bank, and that if they're struggling with food poverty, they can obviously go to the food bank, but also there may be people who are wanting to volunteer as well. So it could be quite a good cross connection. We've got running clubs, community Facebook pages. With the community Facebook pages, if you are able to, or someone in the shop has more confidence to do it, you can share some short video clips about what they can achieve with volunteering, why we need them to help, and what skills they can gain whilst doing it as well, just to make it a bit more engaging. We've got churches, mosques, community group centres, mini pop-up days in the shop, for example, coffee mornings, which I think a lot of the shops are already doing. That is a tried and trusted method. I was actually just thinking this morning, maybe you could do a coffee evening or a coffee weekend instead of in the mornings, just to appeal to people who they may be on shift work, or people may be working full time, they can't come in the morning, maybe they can come at the weekend instead. You can work with your other local shops nearby to support the volunteer recruitment days as well, for extra staff cover when you need it. We've got doctors' surgeries, car showrooms, vehicle hire businesses. I realise some of these probably sound quite obscure, but I'm just thinking of new ways that we can target people. We've got local dog walkers and dog or cat sitter groups and businesses. Children's care homes. I was thinking about this one and I thought, what a great opportunity to be offering some children some work experience by volunteering, especially helping support them feel like they belong and are a part of a community as well. And there's probably lots of young children in care homes that perhaps want to build their confidence, get some work experience and be part of something, a local community that they can belong to. So we've got theatres as well, hospital and care home notice boards, for example, people that perhaps attend in hospital to visit someone regularly, or they're in hospital and they've had an illness and they want to get back into doing something to build their confidence. Care home notice boards, the thought around that is that people that are visiting their loved ones in care homes, they might also want to volunteer sometime. It may fit with their cause as well if they've got a relative that is struggling with their mental health. there's the local housing associations. Often they have quite good links within the community that they could refer quite a lot of potential volunteers to us. Estate agents. The reason why I suggested this one, I was thinking most of our high streets do have an estate agents, and it may seem quite obscure, but it could actually work really well for us if you could build a relationship with that local estate agent. What you could do then is they could advertise in their estate agents that you're looking for volunteers, and perhaps people that are new and moving to the area, looking to obviously build community and perhaps get to know the area a bit better. They might like to volunteer, but also it could double up as a really good donation point as well. If people are clearing out when they're moving or when they're selling a home, and perhaps that might put mind at the front of their minds when they're looking to give donations as well as volunteering. There are quite a few more, so bear with me. We've got garden centres, elderly networks, so perhaps you could get in touch with the local council support centres, the social workers as well, because there's probably a hell of a lot of people who are elderly, who are perhaps lonely, who have got a really great skill set and experience that they can offer and that they can bring to our local mines and shops. So that could be a great opportunity. Mental health community teams as well. So not only does it fit with the cause, but it's great for people who are perhaps in recovery from mental health illness, or they are still living, they've got lived experience. They might want to get out into the community to build their confidence. That could be a really great link in the local areas. Post offices, often people are queuing. If they've got a notice board, it could perhaps have a little poster there. Supermarket notice boards again as well. When people are packing their shopping, perhaps you could put a few leaflets there, or put it on the notice boards. We've got some of these you may be targeting already, a bit obvious: local cafes and pubs, local job centres. We've got leisure centre notice boards. Martial arts centres, because often these run out of different centres and not at the community sports centre. Netball and football groups, any community fitness groups. Private recruitment agencies, again, that could work quite well. They're perhaps, wanting people to get work experience if they've been out of work for a while, or they're looking to build their confidence. Schools and universities, a lot of you are probably already doing that. And we've got vets and animal sanctuaries. Again, if people are taking their pets and they're in the waiting room and they may see the cause, also as well. A lot of people sadly do lose their pets as well. So there is an aligned cause there, with supporting people's mental health. If they're, suffering bereavement from losing a loved pet. We've got university careers fairs, which a lot of you are already doing. Local pharmacies, again, another place where people are dwelling, maybe in a queue for quite a while, or they're waiting to pick up their prescription. Neonatal classes. We've got local walkers and ramblers groups, small fairs and markets. Opticians, your local butchers or farm shops, for those shops that are a bit more based in the countryside or more rural. We've got park notice boards and hubs, police stations, A&E notice boards, your local hardware stores like B&Q, Wickes. Perhaps there's people there that have got an interest in supporting in a different skill set. And they could be targeted a different demographic in your sort of local hardware stores. Petrol stations, again, people are standing at the pump, filling their cars. There's a few minutes to read a poster, or whilst they go in to pay. Bus stations and train and tube stations that are nearby. Obviously, you'd need to get permission from the council for that, or perhaps TfL or the rail network. Local language groups as well. Often people, they've perhaps got some spare time. If they're learning a language, they might also want to volunteer as well. There may also be people who are perhaps learning English as a second language, and maybe they want some experience practicing the new language skills. And then we've got haberdashery shops and suppliers and craft groups. I thought that could be great because obviously we have a lot of donations in our shops that people who are perhaps crafters may buy to make craft projects, or they might want to support the shop by you know, volunteering or making craft goods for the shop or local mind. We've got allotments as well, again another place where people spend a lot of time, and perhaps those, and it could be an assumption, but perhaps those people that have got a bit more time on their hands have allotments, and perhaps they'd like to volunteer as well. We've got fishing notice boards, again quite an obscure one, but maybe reaching a different demographic of people. Car boot sales, if there's any shops or local mines in local areas, you're already doing great by getting out to the local events and fairs and things like that, but perhaps you could try a car boot. You could sell some of the goods as well at the same time as recruiting potential volunteers. And then the last two are community car parks, if there's a notice board nearby, and hotels and B&Bs where people may be staying in an area for longer and they may want to give back some time, or perhaps they just haven't thought about volunteering and they visit somewhere else, but they also then think, oh, I could volunteer my time there as well. So I think I've just ran through quite a lot of those.
I told you
So-
she had loads of ideas, but I think it's the thing, isn't it? Because I mean, people have put up on the Menti thing, or we put posters up and stuff, and I'm sure everybody does that, but like, where are we putting them? You know, it is really thinking about those different locations, isn't it? And
Yeah.
the estate agent one that we chatted about the other day, I was a bit like, when you first said it, I was like, what is she on about? And then I thought about it and I thought, yeah, you've got people moving to a new area that want to meet people and integrate into the community. You've got people downsizing because their kids have left home, whatever, maybe they're retiring, so maybe they've got a bit more spare time on their hands. So it does make sense when you think about it. It's thinking like, who are the different sort of groups of people we might appeal to. There's a few things I want to pick up on that people have suggested, but Michelle's asking in the chat, is there what's the minimum age for volunteering? Because we've talked about, you know,
Thank you.
students and stuff.
Yeah, so that's really important. Thank you for checking. So the youngest we can take in the shops is anyone of 14 and above. Now, the reason being for that, just to give some context, is our insurance only insures us for years 14 to 75, but it's not necessarily a problem for those that are over 75. They can still volunteer with us anyway, but those under 14, that's our safeguarding sort of limit. So you just be careful, because you may get people that come via Duke of Edinburgh and they may be 13 or they may be 12, and we do have some instances where they do want to volunteer in the shop, but unfortunately we just can't hire them as a volunteer until they're over 14. And just to add on to that as well, if you are unsure about anything, feel free to pop me a message on the retail volunteering inbox, because those 14 to 16 and under 18, they have a slightly different recruitment process. So there's two additional documents. There's depending on how old they are, there's a young person's risk assessment, which we would need to do for anyone under 18. And there's a parental/guardian consent form that we would have to do for anyone the ages of 14 to 16. But if you're unsure, please do pop me an email. I can happy to chat with you over the phone or Teams and just talk you through that. But thank you for checking that.
Thanks, Lauren. I didn't know that either. I assumed it would have been 16, so that kind of does open up a few more opportunities, doesn't it? And especially if you've got older volunteers in your shops that might have grandchildren as well, that they can sort of bring them through for you as well. So one of the things someone's put on Menti that I really want to talk a bit more about in a minute is about this sort of clear routes for ex-service users to progress. And I think that kind of ties in with how we might work closer together across the different parts of the Federation. So we're going to come back to that in a minute, but Ed has put in the chat about the different roles that people do in volunteering, and we were going to talk about benefits next anyway, you know, what the benefits of volunteering. But I think that's a really important point, because it's about trying to find what people are interested in, isn't it? And somebody might be like, oh, I do not want to work on the till, or I do not want to work in the back room, but I love fashion and I'd love to style your windows or style your mannequins in your shops, you know, or I love social media and I'm going to do it at college because I want to be a social media person, and there's an opportunity maybe to run the shop social media activity and get a bit of practice. So I wonder, like, if there is something around the specifics of the different types of volunteering roles within your shops, and sort of leaning into people's interests. I don't know what you think about that, Lauren, but also when we're advertising, are we really selling the benefits to the volunteers, you know, of what they get if they come and support Mind? Do you want to run through some of those, Lauren, just to make sure everyone's aware?
Bear with me whilst I just get my pre-prepared. Bear with me. So obviously there are a lot of benefits, and some of these tie into retention as well, so apologies if I'm doubling up on these and we touch on these again, but we really need to think about the target audience of who we are trying to reach out to, and perhaps if there's gaps where we can fill those gaps as well. So it's really great what Sarah was just saying. Obviously we do have lots of different roles within the shops that volunteers can do, and it's not just about getting what we need for the shops to run, but it's also about giving back to volunteers things that they would enjoy doing, because that would be something that would help retain them as a volunteer in the shop as well. So just to highlight the key benefits at the moment, so all volunteers get 25% discount on all donated items in store, which is great for a lot of people. The time that they can volunteer can be flexible as well. We do see that as a benefit, because you know, you may have someone that's retired that has perhaps got a bit more time that wants to volunteer regularly or a few days a week, and then you may have someone that perhaps works full time but they're still dedicated to the cause. They'd still like to commit a few hours a week, which is why we just ask for a minimum of 1 hour. Obviously you do need to cater to the needs of your shops as well, and try and get a mix of volunteers that can offer a mix of flexible time schedules as well. But you can highlight that as a benefit, because if someone has a really great experience in, say, merchandising, just to give an example, but they work full time, maybe they can only give 3 hours on a Saturday, that would be better than not hiring that person as a volunteer, because they can only offer 3 hours. So we understand there's a need there in the shops to obviously get volunteers in the shops, but do just think a bit outside the box about people's skill sets and things as well, and their schedules. Obviously, they would be joining the cause to fight for mental health, so they'd be aligned with our charity. They may have lived experience, or they may have experience supporting someone who has lived experience. It's a good opportunity for people to gain confidence. Often, you know, we may have young people that are just starting out, they've not had any work experience before, or they're looking to build that confidence. We've also got people who perhaps they've been out of work for a while and they want to, you know, build their confidence back up to get back out in the community. So you could have someone returning to a workplace as well. Friendships and building social connections. We know that a lot of our volunteers, you know, sign up because they want to make new friends in the area. They want to support their local communities. They can obviously gain new skills and experience in different roles. So just touching back on what Sarah said earlier. So, you know, you could have a volunteer that does merchandising. You could have a volunteer that does customer service assistant. You could have somebody who's doing the sorting and the steaming. You could have a housekeeper volunteer who helps keep the shop clean and tidy. You know, you could have a volunteer that's great with social media, as Sarah was saying, that can help you, you know, raise your local Mind or your charity shop online. There's also potential and further opportunity to develop with Mind Retail. So we've got 2 examples of this. So the first one is that we have a great training and development team, which is supported by Steve and Karen, who are our learning and development managers, and they will work with the shop teams to develop not just our paid staff but our volunteers as well. There's a full induction programme which every volunteer obviously works through, and as I was saying about the opportunity to develop further, there may be people that start off as a volunteer but actually progress further with Mind. They may become a paid employee. For example, Rosie Herbert, at one of our regional managers, she started off as a volunteer and she rose the ranks to being an RM. So there's some really great talent. So that can be an offering that we can have for our volunteers. There's also the opportunity that they can become mental health first aiders and applied suicide intervention skills trained, which they are run by Steve and Karen, our learning and development managers. Then we've got a wellbeing page on the intranet. This is for paid staff and volunteers. Not all of them apply to volunteers, but there are some really great ones that do apply to the volunteers. So to touch on those briefly, we've got access to an app called Shop Street, which is a scheme where they can get discounts and cash back on their shopping as well. I've downloaded it. It's really good, really helpful. If you pop into Aldi or Asda to do your shopping, you can get a voucher beforehand and you get either cash back or you get money off your shop. We've also got the charity workers discount, which volunteers can apply for as well. We celebrate volunteers every year at Volunteers Week with certificates and celebrations in the shops. And every year at the end of year around Christmas, obviously not everyone celebrates Christmas, but it's our end of season greeting card, and every volunteer gets a £10 voucher to spend in the shop to thank them for their efforts. And then just lastly as well, I touched on it earlier, there is a full induction as well. Every volunteer will be supported at Mind Retail with a full induction. So that's something that if they do decide in the future to apply for a job with us or elsewhere, that will stand them in really good that will stand them in really good stead going forward to be part of your volunteer team as well. And you can really lean on those volunteers. They also got the opportunity to become lead volunteers as well as they progress. So I realise that's quite a lot of information.
It's important though, Lauren. It is a lot of info, but that's a good thing because that gives us all lots of options. We don't necessarily have to put everything on every poster, but again, thinking about the audience that we're trying to reach each time, so if you are advertising in schools and colleges or where there's likely to be an audience of young people, then we might focus more on the staff discount and the development and building your confidence and your skills and just gaining that work experience. Whereas if we were concentrating on an older demographic, we might talk more about the friendship and connection and kind of, because loneliness is it's a big and real problem, isn't it, for a lot of older people, and especially in more rural areas. And I know a lot of our shops are in more rural settings. There's a shop in Ashbourne, for example, where my family is from in Derbyshire, and it's it's a small town in the on the edge of the Peak District, so it's quite a rural community and an elderly and aging community as well. So yeah, lots to think about, but I think the key takeaway from that is really thinking about who is the audience and what benefits would be most attractive to them, and just making sure that we're not just asking for volunteers, but we're really selling the opportunity and what's in it for them. And you mentioned about Rosie, and we use Rosie a lot as an example of progression, but I know it isn't an isolated one because I live in Cardiff now, and my local shop, the manager Tina there, who's awesome, she started as a volunteer as well many years ago. So that there is genuine opportunities for progression there for people as well. Before we move on to diving back into working together in the different parts of the Federation more closely and looking at what we already do and what perhaps we don't do and we could do, let's just spend a few minutes back on Menti, seeing from you guys whether you've got any other ways that you show your appreciation in your shops to your volunteers, because obviously recruiting them's hard enough, hanging on to them can be even more difficult. So Lauren's talked about some of the things that we do across the board, but do you do anything differently in your shops in terms of rewarding and recognising the contributions of volunteers? It could be anything, but do share your kind of ideas or things that you do that help your volunteers feel appreciated and earn that kind of bit of loyalty, I suppose, that gets them to stay. So any suggestions, do shout. And we'll see what you come up with. But I guess, I mean, I've only volunteered a few times in my local shop, but the team of volunteers there have been there for ages, and they do have a few of younger people who'll just contribute a few hours a week. But for the older ones, it feels like it's like a community that they don't want to leave. It's got that kind of real feeling where they look out for each other. It's really nice. Anniversary, yeah, marking their anniversaries. That's true. And yeah, do you keep a track of that with your volunteers, you know, of how long has Janet been volunteering in the shop for, or Bob or whatever, just so you can make note of it, because it's an opportunity to say thank you, isn't it? I love the birthday cards thing as well from Prestatyn. Access to training resources, that's really important to highlight, yeah.
I forgot to mention 2 things, Sarah, just quickly. So
Yeah.
we also, somebody's put their summer winter celebration events. We do have an end of year party that every shop, depending on if obviously they have to hit the shop targets and everything, but we do have an end of year party for the volunteers as well, where there will be like a Christmas social, end of year social. And we've also just launched our Mind Appreciation Toolkit, which our people team put together to celebrate employees and volunteers' contributions. So every shop should have received that pack recently, just to touch on that.
Yes, I saw that in the newsletter. I've seen some people already starting to use it as well, which is great, that appreciation pack. Yeah, it's all like, it's small things, isn't it? And most of the time it doesn't cost anything, or it costs very, very little, but it means such a great deal to people, doesn't it? So I think it is those little details. And I'm loving that Ed, who's our moderator in this session, started volunteering at his local Mind, and then now he's at the national charity and been here quite a while now, Ed, as well, haven't you? So yeah, I think that kind of leads us quite nicely into the next thing we want to talk about. Oh, before I move on though, someone's just put regular wellbeing check-ins up on the screen. And that is so important, especially as we know, like a lot of us and a lot of volunteers have got lived experience of mental health problems. So having those open conversations about wellbeing are important, but also just people feeling seen as well, if they're going through something difficult, can make such a difference. So absolutely, that's a great call, that one. But let's move into thinking about how we can, like, we're a massive federation. We've got this national charity, we've got all these shops and all these local Minds. There must be ways that we can work more closely together to support each other in sourcing volunteers. And Lauren, you mentioned on the phone the other day how many volunteers sort of power Mind Retail each year, and I kind of was familiar with that figure. But then we've got some posters up in the office in the national charity at the moment about the number of volunteers that are across the local Mind network as well. And it's a similar number. It's over 5,000 in the past year, which really surprised me. I didn't realise there was so many. And that, of course, includes roles like trustees and things that are really important at local Minds. But it includes people giving peer support and stuff like that to others as well. So if we move off this one on Mentied and just think about, like, how we can work together across the federation to support each other. How can we, you know, if you've got a volunteer perhaps who's had lived experience of mental health problems and has been off work for a while, volunteers in your shop, gets their confidence back, wants to look to do something else, how could we maybe move them on within the Mind Federation and create opportunities elsewhere for them that might sort of meet their needs and keep them within Mind? So just sort of thinking about how we can or do already work together across the federation. And Lauren, you mentioned an example in Birmingham, I think it was, the other day. Do you want to just share a bit about that, just to get people thinking?
Yeah, thank you. So recently I attended a retail volunteering network, and there were some local Mind teams on that as well. And they were saying that obviously they like to have volunteers, but sometimes what happens is they may have a service user at a local Mind that then wants to volunteer at the local Mind, but they would like to have sort of a a breather between them being a local service user of that local mind and them volunteering at a local mind. So I just said in the chat, how about if they've got a local retail mind shop nearby, that they could refer to us and we can cross-refer to them as well. And then that means, let's say if someone's suffered with lived experience, they've been receiving support at the local mind and they want to volunteer, but they have to have a 3 to 6 month wait, for example, before they can volunteer at the local mind. We could keep them in the organisation by them volunteering in the shop, which is still supporting the cause, still helping build their confidence and create that sense of community as well. And then we could just have the example, if we build those links with a local mind, we can then just cross-refer. If we've got too many volunteers and they're struggling to recruit volunteers, we can say, we know the local mind is in need of volunteers, would you think about doing that? We've also got, if they've got too many volunteers as well, they can refer to us. So it was something really simple, but we just had a conversation with Birmingham Mind and the Bearwood shop, and now they've just got sort of an informal setup between them where they cross-refer volunteers. So something like that really we can do quite easily.
Yeah, that sounds really good. But yeah, any sort of ideas that you have? I mean, is there anyone on the call who already has an established relationship with either their local mind if you're a shop, or their local shop if you're a local mind? Because I think something you just said then, Lauren's really important, is it just starts with a conversation. Yeah. And if we aren't having those conversations together with colleagues from different parts of the federation, we don't really know what is possible, what the options might be. I mean, sorry, Ed, if we can move on to the next. Oh, no, this is the right question. Sorry. Yeah. So how could we work better together to attract and retain volunteers? It's blank at the moment, which suggests that maybe this is a real area for discussion for us. And I work in the national charity, and one thing that my colleague who looks after all the marketing with retail does is, when it's National Volunteers Week, she encourages colleagues from the national charity to go and volunteer in their local shops, and like a growing number of us do that each year. And whilst we might be more of a hindrance and a help on those one-off shifts that we do, I think it's an experience that people then have, and they go and talk to other people about it. So they might have a friend and they might recommend that they go and volunteer. So I think there's a benefit in doing it. But what other types of things do you think could work? How would you like to work together with your local shop or your local mind? Danielle is saying, our local mind shop unfortunately closed last year, right? But we have had a couple of volunteers move between services at our local mind, depending on what experience they're looking for. Yeah, I suppose it's not always going to necessarily map across that there is a shop and a local mind close enough, but there certainly is coverage across across England and Wales in many cases that aligns. So have any of you, no problem, Ruth. Have any of you from the shops just reached out to your local mind to just say, hey, and how could we talk about volunteering? Is that something that you feel you'd be comfortable doing, or how could we support you better to do that? Love to hear people's thoughts around that. Quiet. I'm really bad with quiet. I always fill the silences. I mean, I'll pass back to you in a minute, Lauren, but I think my advice on that would be is, if you literally haven't got a clue who to speak to at your local mind or shop, if it's vice versa, yeah, exactly, knowing who to approach. I think ask us, you've got Lauren in the volunteering capacity. I appreciate that's not perhaps the right contact, but there's Kirstine and Josh in the marketing team who send out your newsletter every week. You've got your regional area and regional managers, of course, who are tapped into the system and could find that out for you. And we've got, some of you will have used Connecting Minds before, which is this kind of intranet thing that we've got across the federation. It's what FedFest has been showing on. But that you can find a full directory on there of every shop, every local mind, the telephone numbers, the contact details. So even if you can't access that yourself, then your regional managers certainly can, and we can in the comms and marketing team as well. So maybe that's something we could do a bit of a push on, and we could set up like a little campaign of making it easy for you to find that out. So we could produce a list perhaps of who the first points of contact would be and share that with you if that would be helpful.
I think that would be great, Sarah.
Yeah, and I think that's achievable. Obviously, it would take a bit of time and people change and stuff like that. But I think it just starts with a conversation, doesn't it? I can remember being in Longton near Stoke a while ago, and it was before that shop closed, and then it has reopened since. But when they had the big superstore there, the local Mind had some office space in it. And so we went to visit and met the shop staff and the local Mind staff. And just by being in that space together and talking, they kept coming up with different ideas of things that they could do to support each other. Simple things, but like those ideas just would not have come up if they weren't talking. So it does literally start with a conversation. I think that's something we can help with.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think, Lauren?
Well, no, I agree with what you said completely, but I think as well it's perhaps dipping your toe into an area that you perhaps have felt a bit nervous about doing before. So if we can get a list and share that, that could be we could make it quite a simple thing for people to do. Just, you know, perhaps have a quick coffee and a quick chat with someone at the local Mind, or they can come to the shop and have a chat with us. You know, and also as well, I was just thinking about, we've got over 5,000 volunteers in our shops, and you mentioned, Sarah, there's over 5,000 across the local Minds. There's so many touch points, that so many businesses, that people who are perhaps volunteering that work for an organisation as well. There's so many touch points those people can reach, and just thinking about people's experience of volunteering. You know, they say in sales, if somebody has one bad experience at a shop, they then go away and tell 10 people. I mean, we could turn that into a positive at the local Minds and at our shops to reinforce them having a great experience working with Mind, and that then, you know, word of mouth is one of the best ways we can build, you know, contact. So for example, you could have somebody that's working at a local that's volunteering at a local Mind or a Mind charity shop, and they could work for a big corporate organization who also allows them to have two volunteering days a year. That could be another mechanism. So sometimes it's just about making more connection with the volunteers we've already got and the teams that we've got across local Mind and the charity shops, and just fostering better communication with each other, and also, most importantly, making our volunteers feel welcomed. One of our RMs fed back that you know, not just necessarily handing people an application form, having that interaction with them, and yeah, just thinking outside the box. I mean, you could even approach your local paper. Obviously, please do consult with Kirsty and Josh in our marketing team as well, to help you with that. But perhaps they've got like a free ad space that you could use for the local Mind, or the Mind charity shop, or you could do a connected one if you build that connection together. So there's some ideas that you could maybe look at as well. But I appreciate, you know, it is hard at times. It is a hard climate with volunteering and charity shops as well. We're competing with other charity shops on the high streets, and it's what can we do differently that makes people want to volunteer with us and makes people want to stay volunteering as well.
Yeah, definitely. And Lauren, you just mentioned about ad space in newspapers, and that is such a good idea, because even at the national charity, we quite often get offered what's called pro bono advertising, and it's just like a publication or a digital sign, you know, digital advert board or whatever. I haven't got anyone who's willing to pay for it at that moment in time. So rather than have it blank, they will give opportunities at really short notice to charities to put an advert up, and it doesn't cost you anything. So even if it's just about sowing that seed in the mind of your local newspaper, and then every now and again they'll be like, do you know what, we have got a space, have it, you know, and it might not even cost you anything. So that's a really good idea. A few things that have struck me while you've been talking is You talked about that kind of the impression that the shops make, or, you know, a retail impression, you know, and how that lasts with people. And one of the things I find when I tell people that I work for Mind is that for most people, their awareness around Mind and the contact that they have on a daily basis or regular basis is through the shops. That's what people see on the high streets. That's where they might be going and shopping and donating and stuff like that. So for a lot of members of the public, that's their only interface with Mind. So it's that kind of front door, if you like, to everything else that the Federation has to offer. So I think that that's a real selling point when you're talking to your local Minds. You know, it's about the value that you hold in the community and the reputation that the shop has in the community, and that shapes how people think about Mind as a brand and as an organisation. So that's really important. And you also talked about, a lot of you said that you go to like recruitment fairs and things like that. And I think, you know, local Minds doing the same. So they'll go to like freshers fairs, you know, with the students, and they're doing like a wellbeing stand, or they might be at some kind of wellbeing event or conference focusing on that side of things. And I guess it's looking for opportunities of where you could support one another in those places, so that if you're at a recruitment fair, you've also maybe got some information about, you know, our info leaflets, who the local Mind is, whatever, and then vice versa, so that we're kind of multiplying our efforts. And the other thing I was thinking about as well was like events. I know that like a lot of the local Minds run local events, obviously for fundraising and stuff like that. And I've seen it happen where they work with their shop. So maybe they've had like a summer fair or whatever, and the local shop has come and done a stall at it. So it definitely happens. But things like mental health now, you know, the fun run at Christmas that's really growing. I know some shops are stocking the little elves now as well. But I feel like that's another opportunity where you could really work together in your local communities to support each other. You could put a poster up in your shop window, as I'm sure many of you have, and then that kind of helps to just build the mutually rewarding relationship between the two parts of the Federation. Before we close, I know that people are busy working in the background, and I'm loving that, Julie, your camera is on and that we can see that, because I bet you lots of the other people with their cameras off are doing the same. So I love that you're multitasking. But what it would be really nice to hear or find in the chat before we bring the session to a close is, out of everything that you've heard today, and I appreciate we've done a lot of talking, what's the one thing that you would take away that you would say you're going to do? So what have you heard today that's made you think, oh, I'm definitely going to go and do that? Just one thing, because you're all busy. I'd love to know if anyone wants to come off mute or stick it in the chat. It would be really nice to hear kind of what your biggest takeaway is from today in terms of volunteer recruitment. I
think my one is to have that interaction at first point more when someone walks in the shop, asking for a application form, because so many people take them and don't come back.
Yeah, and that's a really easy one, isn't it, to do?
We do it, but sometimes when you're busy, it's just they just get handed a form. So I'm going to try and do that more. That's
brilliant, Julie. Thank you. And Danielle says in the chat, looking at other areas where we could be advertising volunteering opportunities, and how we can make the application process easier, definitely. Because that's another thing, isn't it? People haven't got much time, and if they get an idea and then it's a complicated form, they might just not finish filling it in. So yeah, that's a good point. I love Ed's suggestion as well. And this is something that National Mind could think about. We have a lot of people fundraising for us across the country, doing different running events and stuff like that. And we have a lot of communication with them, and we send them a fundraising pack and all sorts. I wonder if that's in there. You know, go and pick up some running kit at your local Mind shop, or donate running kit to your local Mind shop or whatever. Yeah, it's such a small and simple thing to do.
I love that idea. The other thing I was thinking as well is, and okay, it may not seem practical at first glance, but even if our shop hubs acted like a mental health hub where people can start their run from the Mind shop, you know, they can meet other runners, and then from the local Minds as well, you could, if there was somebody to obviously run that, obviously we'd have to have someone to help with that, but perhaps you could have people actually meeting at some of the shops as their starting point and doing a run together, whilst raising money for Mind.
I think that'd be lovely. I think there's loads we could do around mental health. Like I did the one in Newport last year for Minding Gwent with my daughter. And of course, we wanted to dress up like elves because obviously, you know, you're going to do that, aren't you? So we went to like Asda and bought elf pajamas. And then we went to WH Smith and bought elf ears. And I thought to myself afterwards, I should be buying all of this stuff from my local Mind shop. You know, so, you know, maybe that's an area where we could grow the merch in future so that everyone who enters the race gets, you know, told where their local Mind shop is and that they can buy the things they're going to buy anyway from there. So the money comes to us and not to Asda's and WH Smith's.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Would anyone else like to share what they would take away from today of like one thing that you feel you're definitely going to do to boost your volunteer recruitment and retention? Silence. We've stunned you into submission.
More little tip?
Go for it, Lauren.
Just thinking about how busy you are in the shops, and sometimes you may be a lone worker in the shop as well. We do understand that you're doing your best and that volunteer recruitment can be hard for local minds and for the charity shops. But what you could maybe do is you could work out in your region who needs more volunteers, and then perhaps if another shop that's already doing okay with volunteers, they can come and support you on perhaps a coffee morning or a coffee evening or whatever, coffee weekend, whatever it is. So you've got a few more shop staff headcount in your shop, and then you can focus on a bit of the volunteering recruitment as well. And the other thing is as well, and I think we touched on it earlier, is about sharing our volunteers' experiences. So our volunteers are also our ambassadors. So simple things like asking them, do they know anyone that wants to volunteer, or could they help us with volunteer recruitment? Perhaps somebody that's a specialist, Sarah touched on before, in social media, and we're getting our volunteers to take off some of that workload so that it can free us up to do other things as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And I think if I was scrolling through social media and I saw an advert from a shop or a local Mind just saying volunteers needed, staff discount, whatever list of benefits, I'd look at it. But if I saw a video of Ed talking about his experiences volunteering in the shop and everything he gained from it and encouraging me to do the same, I'd probably be more likely to act on it. So that kind of first-hand experience and stories, I think, is something not to overlook for sure. I know we do that a bit, but we could probably do that a bit more given, you know, time permitting, because totally take on board what you're saying, Lauren. Everyone's got a massive to-do list and this is not an easy task. So appreciate it's not always straightforward. So Danielle's put a comment in the chat around could you expand on like the building the volunteers role, like a lead volunteer? I think you mentioned that earlier, Lauren, didn't you? So how does that work? Like you come in as a volunteer and then what can you become?
Yeah, so we do already have some lead volunteers in our business, but what we've recently started doing in the last couple of months is on the volunteer intranet, on our Mind Shop intranet, other people can obviously see that as well. We have a form on there, a simple Microsoft form where people can fill it in, and then we will set up a recruitment piece for a lead volunteer role. We've got a specialist lead volunteer role description, and then we promote that on Charity Jobs, and then we send some posters to your shop as well. And just to add on that, we will hopefully, going forwards, we're going to be partnering with the Royal Voluntary Service on an app called Govo. And you may have seen some adverts for that recently as well. I meant to mention this a bit earlier on. That's another way that we can recruit more volunteers. And also we have trialled some in Kevin Willow's region, trialing some generic volunteer recruitment roles on Charity Jobs as well. I do need to get some feedback about that to see how they worked. But we have definitely had some positive interaction. So going back to the lead volunteer role, they would be people you could progress from an existing volunteer role in the shop to a lead volunteer role, and they can they essentially have more responsibilities than our regular volunteering role, but you can also recruit these externally, so somebody could come in straight away as a lead volunteer if they've already got the skill set that we're looking for. And those lead volunteer roles are there essentially, one, to give a boost to the volunteers we've already got with something different, to try and retain the volunteers that we've got, but also give them you know, a way to progress their skills, but also supporting the shop team. You know, we do have some shops that are occasionally ran by our volunteers because there perhaps is a staff sickness, or we're perhaps recruiting for a paid member of staff. So it's really great to hire lead volunteers, because they can actually free up more of your time in the shop for other things as well.
Great, thanks, Lauren. And that of course is like a new level of experience then for people who are trying to build their work experience or confidence in the workplace, isn't it? So there is still a benefit, you know, for the volunteer as well as for us. Okay.
I think, Ed put the idea, if he doesn't mind talking a little bit more about his idea, he put in the chat. Sorry to put you on the spot there, Ed.
No, that's okay. So like I do not know if this was feasible. I was just kind of like throwing ideas out that I thought could be of interest, and I wasn't even sure if most places were already doing them, but I was thinking, as people were obviously very stretched for time, if there was a role that either alongside, you know, doing the shelvers and doing the till was wholly focused on thinking about how do I attract new volunteers in my local area, how do we retain people, speaking to the other volunteers, finding out what are the issues specific around, you know, the people that were coming in, around why were they drifting away, or was it they not getting anything out of the role after a certain point, or was it that they were doing it for a while and then looking to move on to employment, finding the different issues and just kind of like having a real focus on that, so that it wasn't kind of a strain for everybody to be trying to be doing a little bit of everything all at once.
Yeah, I think that would be great. We can definitely I think there's we do have the Staff Your Voice, where people can people and volunteers can feedback to us as well, but I think that's a really good idea, Ed, and it would probably help our shops immensely to have that.
And it goes back to what we were saying earlier about variation as well, isn't it? Like I know from speaking to volunteers in the Cardiff shop, for example, that there's some of them like a particular job and they only do that particular job when they come in the shop, and they're dead happy about that. But for other people, you get bored and you want to do something a bit different. You still want to contribute. So, you know, that kind of idea that Ed suggested could be a way of hanging on to a good volunteer and helping them diversify their experience and their skill set, and having something different and new to think about. So it is that kind of variety in the roles that are available, if that's what people want. Ed?
Just to throw in as well, like for all the years that I was volunteering in a couple of different places, the people that I met who were also volunteering, some people were very young, but I met quite a lot of people who were middle-aged, had kind of like successful careers in quite expert areas, and then for various reasons had decided kind of like to take a break, or that they'd had some mental health problems was a common thing, and they were taking a break, and they were looking to volunteer to kind of rebuild their confidence, but they had a massive wealth of very, very big skills that they were kind of willing to offer, but often there weren't the opportunities there, because the opportunities were often more kind of not to say simple, but just kind of things that were kind of easy to train. So if you had more skilled areas that you're like, we don't know how to kind of like fill these, there are potentially people out there who have those skills and could fill them.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
And I think as well, getting used to perhaps contacting shops that are not necessarily in your region as well. Maybe this could work for other local minds as well, like reaching out to people in different areas to bring fresh ideas, or to support with skill sets where they can do that.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned earlier, Lauren, about the Birmingham example of where the local mind had some ex-service users that wanted to come back and volunteer at the local mind, but there needed to be a buffer, so they went to the shops for a bit. But it could equally work in reverse, couldn't it? You could have someone who's had mental health problems and it's really affected their confidence and ability to go out to work, and they volunteer in the shop, rebuild that confidence, and they're ready to start doing something more. And it may be then that they could be, you know, really useful to their local mind to support others who've gone through similar things, you know. So I guess it's like if a volunteer leaves your shop or leaves your local mind, is there something else within the federation that we could guide them towards? And that includes at National Mind, we're always looking for campaigners and stuff like that, you know. So it's that if you're passionate about mental health, we want to keep you as part of the Mind family in some way or another. So it's thinking about that beyond our own immediate needs, I suppose, sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, sharing positively what we're already doing, because we often look at perhaps what we're not doing or what we need to do, but looking at what we're already doing very, very well, very successfully, and sharing that knowledge with other teams or local minds as well, so that you can help each other out.
Definitely. I think we'll look out for good examples and make sure we're sharing them more. But I think we'll bring today's session to a close. Thank you all so much for joining and for sharing your ideas and things you already do. What we will do after this session is we're going to bring a big list together around each of those areas and put all the ideas in one place, including Lauren's mega list of ideas, so that there's always a different way of going at this when you've got the time and the inclination to do it. And we'll make sure that we share that with all the shops and Local Mind comms colleagues as well. And then the other thing we'll look at is how can we get you on a bit of a speed dating vibe between the local minds and the shops? How can we make that contact easier for you, and see if we can come up with like a bit of a database that you can use to know who to reach out to in the shops and in the local minds. So and Lauren, do you have anything else to say before we close?
I would just like to say thank you to everyone that's joined, but for anyone that perhaps watches this on catch up, thank you for everything that you're already doing, because we know you're working very, very hard, and your work and your efforts are appreciated. So thank you to all of our paid employees and our volunteers, because you're all doing an amazing job.
Hear to that. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good rest of the day and look out for the follow-up in your next newsletter. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.